They were great in the box. They could defend, they could block, they read danger, they smelt danger. But I didn't want them getting caught in the halfway line. After the early days at Everton, we had an opportunity to roughly bed things down. My choice of system was to play my goalkeeper, a back four, but we played one in front of the back four. And in the main at this time, it was Lee Carsley. And I'll explain just in a minute my reasons why. And four in front and one up top. So it basically looked like a 4-1-4-1. I had felt that at the time I had really good centre-halves. I had Alan Stubbs, Davy Weir. We had introduced Joseph Yobo a little bit near the time. But for both Alan and Davy, I didn't necessarily want them to be coming out their slots or to be coming up the park too high. So we used Lee Carsley to do that. And how we done it was, we used Lee Carsley to play in front of the two centre-halves here. And I had made a decision that I didn't want Davy Weir or Alan Stubbs necessarily to be coming short with centre-forwards, coming short and leaving spaces for them to run into, or also to take them short and spin, where at that time it could expose their lack of speed higher up the pitch. What these two centre-halves were, they were brilliant penalty box defenders. They were great in the box, they could defend, they could block, they read danger, they smelt danger. But I didn't want them getting caught in the halfway line. So this was why we introduced Lee Carsley to play in front of the back four, which I felt gave the centre-halves and the defenders the best chance of success. What we did do of a rule though was when we had the opposition, who at this time most of the teams were playing with four defenders, any of the full-backs received the ball, it was simply your player up to him and you would start, and then from there we would find the positions of bringing Lee across and trying to stop. If the centre forward came off short to get the ball, Lee Carsley would deal with it to allow Alan Stubbs or Davy Weir to stay in their slots and not get dragged out. So that was how we basically set up. We also found that if the centre-halves had taken the ball and got on the ball, the first and initial press would have come from the one centre-forward. At this time, may have been Kevin Campbell, Thomas Rositzky, I think, may have gone by then. Maybe Wayne Rooney was the people, Duncan Ferguson. And we would use whatever other midfield player was to join the centre-forward to put pressure on the centre-halves. We were very much, I felt, a pressing team from early days. It was my style. I wanted my teams always to press, and we hear an awful lot about it nowadays. But what you do need if you have a pressing team is you do need quick defenders. And at this time, in this period at Everton, we didn't have the quickest central defenders. We had good central defenders, and I had to accommodate that by introducing a player to play in front of them to help them out. So as we evolved at Everton, we were looking to improve the level of player, but the type of player we were bringing into the club. So the team had started to change, and for me, I was always someone who was, as I said earlier, was very keen on pressing. I wanted to win the ball back early. I think the Everton supporters demanded that as well. I think it was something which they wanted. So here was a little bit how I felt we had evolved and how the team had come around. We had Tim Howard in goal, who we'd brought from Manchester United and was doing a brilliant job for us, and had replaced Nigel Martyn. Across the back, by this time now we'd gone and got ourselves central defenders what I felt could play higher up the pitch. We're happy to play 1v1, 2v2, because I think the game was developing now where your defenders had to be able to cope. Phil Jagielka, Joseph Yobo, or Sylvain Distin, and before that it was Joleon Lescott, who I felt were all defenders who could cope 1v1, were quick enough. Probably the biggest difference we had brought was the ability and the football levels we'd brought in when we brought in Mikel Arteta and we brought in Steven Pienaar. And what we had on the other side was Leon Osman, who wasn't a winger, and really Steven Pienaar wasn't a winger. And what they were giving me was extra midfield players. So we developed at the time a sort of title of false wingers, where they would come in and they would play in the pockets inside, both in here. They'd come in the pitch. They'd be looking to receive. At times they would be playing closer to the centre forward. Other times they would be joining up and narrowing the midfield up. But what it meant was it gave the opposition a problem in whether to decide whether they would go in with them or stay with them. But more importantly, I was still very keen on the basics, was getting my full-backs forward. And in Leighton Baines, we had one of the most attacking to become arguably one of the biggest assist makers in the Premier League as an attacking full-back. And at that time we had Tony Hibbett, who it wasn't his strength. His strength was defending, tackling. So that gave us a little bit more of a balance on that side with Leighton Baines. And I think in the end, this partnership between Leighton Baines and Steven Pienaar will be very hard to be improved on. Their ability to find each other with the ball. They wanted to play together, they wanted to combine together. Their combination play down the left was exceptional. It really was. What we had then was Tim Cahill, who would play behind the striker, who at times could be a second striker when required, but also could give us the feeling of having a third midfield player if we were up against it. So he was ideal for this role because he was willing. His energy, his enthusiasm was so good. I'll show you a little bit where we felt we could cause the opposition problems, and I'll put in the opposition back four here. Here's the back four. And we found that their fullbacks had a difficulty dealing, especially on the left-hand side, with Pienaar and Baines. And we found that we always wanted Steven Pienaar to lock on, to encourage the fullback to follow him in and play between the centre half and fullback. And quite often we'd find we could get Pienaar in here, and if the fullback chose not to come, we're happy then for the combination between Baines and Pienaar to get on the ball. Quite often we sucked the fullback out, and as I said earlier, these two had an incredible ability to get the ball back to each other, and we found we got Leighton Baines out and free more often than not. What we then had to make sure we had was a good balance at the back, a little bit of protection from Phil Neville, but Cahill making the box, or Fellaini at this time, and we knew that their ability in the air and what the problems they could cause was exceptional. So that was the way we tried to look. On the other side was very much the same, but we used Osman to try and come in, not so much to release Tony Hibbett, but more now to look to play passes in combinations and play the forward player through. So this had evolved, and this was giving us a great opportunity. Out of possession, we found that both of the players made us tight, compact in the middle of the pitch, and opposition found it really hard to play through us. When we got to my last season at Everton, one of the most important games was Manchester United. The season prior to this, we'd finished, which was really important, above Liverpool in 2-11, 2-12. Now in this year, 2-12, 2-13. Our team had changed slightly, but on the day we had Tim Howard, we had Tony Hibbett, but we also had a very young Seamus Coleman who was pushing hard and was just beginning to break himself into the team. We had Phil Jagielka, and we had Sylvain Distin, and we had Leighton Baines as a back four. All those players were quick and could run, and it gave us a big advantage because of their speed, what they had. In the middle of the pitch at this time, we had now had Phil Neville and Darren Gibson, both ex-Manchester United players. On the right, we had Leon Osman. On the left, we had Steven Pienaar, again tucking in and giving us a little bit more compactness in the middle. And then we had Marouane Fellaini. By this time, Tim Cahill had moved on, but we knew Marouane Fellaini's height and his presence, whether it being playing as a second centre forward or whether it be playing as a third midfield player, he was someone who had great energy and was really important in both boxes as well. And up front at the time we had Jelavic. We brought Jelavic from Rangers, and he as well at that time was a handful and was someone who was getting some goals for us. We came up against a very strong Manchester United team. The only problem Manchester United had on this day was that they had a weakness at the back because their centre-halves, I think they were either injured or suspended. and Michael Carrick had to play as a right-sided centre-back. Tactically, there was not much difference in how the teams had set up. They were quite similar in many ways. And what it was going to come down to, you know, was there any weaknesses in any of the teams? And on the day, we tried to find a little bit of a weakness in Michael Carrick not being a central defender. During the game, we had so many opportunities in the game, and quite often it was Baines to Fellaini. And I remember one where I think David De Gea made a couple of really good saves from Leon Osman, knockdowns and his shots. With a great free kick from Leighton Baines just under the bar, David De Gea made another fantastic save. But all night we had looked to pull Marouane Fellaini onto Michael Carrick, and we're looking for diagonal balls onto his chest, balls played into him, because we knew from that position we would build up down the left-hand side through Baines, through Pienaar coming in off the line to pick up the bits off Fellaini's chest, and then we would release Leighton Baines down the left-hand side. But ultimately, what it quite often happens in football, the goal came down to a set piece. And again, I think on the night, our extra height made a difference. We had Michael Carrick on a corner kick from Darren Gibson, found himself picking up Marouane Fellaini in the middle of the 6-yard box, and Marouane Fellaini scored a fantastic header in the middle of the box. And it was a big win for us, because that season we had beaten Manchester United at home, and we eventually went on to draw with them at Old Trafford as well that season. So for us at Everton, there was big signs that we were getting competitive with the top teams, and Manchester United were certainly the top team, or one of the top teams at that time.